Okay, so AEW is now on the Max streaming service, and altogether, I find it to be a very good experience. And then it got me thinking because I went back to 2019 AEW, and there was something that struck my mind that I don't think a lot of people talk about within the IWC. And this is going to be a very healthy conversation. If you watch this video, I'm not even talking about booking. I'm not talking about hiring decisions. I'm not even talking about business decisions like firing CM Punk or Cody Rhodes leaving. I'm actually going to talk to you guys about something much more different, and that is AEW's production value. Restoring the feeling. Why can't AEW restore the feeling? And then when I was watching 2019 AEW, you can tell that the product was different, from the set to the lighting to the camera work. And yes, I'm not stupid. I do recall a time where AEW definitely had some production issues, especially starting off as a company. I'm not going to ignore that. But what I found to be very interesting was that there was one particular hiring in AEW that changed everything. And that hiring was somebody who didn't understand the feeling of AEW. That was a person who didn't come from AEW. That was a person who came from WWE. And it was the person that was expected to take Kevin Dunn's position if Kevin Dunn were to retire. I'm talking about Mike Mansuri. And it's interesting because when I look at AEW's product, and I specifically look at AEW's production, that was the biggest thing that took AEW away from what AEW was. I think that was a very pinnacle moment looking at the way AEW had transitioned from before to what it is now. AEW now is much more colorful, much more vibrant, much more like WWE. And what really set AEW apart from WWE was this is, yes, the place where the best wrestle. Obviously, we saw extraordinary matches from the beginning. But what really set them apart was the fact that they looked different from the WWE. They had a presentation and aura that I don't think AEW will ever be able to recapture under this new production team. And it's a very challenging situation for AEW because when you look at AEW, I think we can all agree that they have some of the greatest wrestling matches you'll see on television, especially in America, right? But the problem is that the AEW product, I feel, takes a lot of inspiration from WWE production. When I was watching AEW Dynamite Fight for the Fallen and they brought back the LED barricade, in my opinion, it just reminded me too much of WWE. And the feeling that we talk about when we say restore the feeling was the fact that AEW didn't look like WWE. It was the fact that AEW was different and it had much more of a grungier look and a dark look. And I think that really set them apart from what you see in wrestling television. And, you know, it's really funny because you go back in 2019 and you see the logo being in the middle of the ring, right? You don't see that anymore. AEW's ring canvas doesn't even look the way it used to. I think the logo is too colorful. I think the stage with the tunnels, it's too colorful. Too many LEDs, too many lights, too many colors, too much vibrancy. And when I see that, I think that's why AEW can't restore the feeling. You know, when you were watching AEW initially, obviously it's a honeymoon phase, right? It's this brand new thing and it's cool. But I think what really helped them be cool was the fact that they were different from everyone else and they looked different from everyone else. And I think that's a really hard thing to do. Mike Mansuri can't restore the feeling when all he really knows is the WWE way of doing things. And so for me, when I was watching the old AEW content, which by the way, let me just be very clear, I've always liked the Max streaming service and Netflix and all these streaming services. Like, I like how they work and operate. I had a very good experience watching it on Max. It was just really good quality and like everything looked great. They tried some new camera angles, which was cool too. I liked it. I thought it was a good like presentation. I just can't get over the fact that AEW Dynamite and all of these shows look like a WWE produced show in certain circumstances. And I feel like when we talk about restoring the feeling of AEW, what truly made them different was the fact that they didn't look like WWE. And nobody talks about this, but when Mike Mansuri came into the company, you saw a very big change in how they produce their product. And I actually think that's a bad decision. I think Mike Mansuri should have came into the company and tried to keep some of that original aura that AEW had, because from a television perspective, if I'm flipping channels, I knew immediately that it was different. And I think for wrestling fans, like, I think some people might look at me as like nitpicking this or whatever, but when we can't talk about restoring the feeling of AEW at all until we address the fact that it's not the same production. It's just simply not. Great wrestling matches. Sometimes storylines are good. Sometimes they hit good. Sometimes they don't. But when I'm watching a TV product, I feel like it became more like WWE than it was the original vision of AEW. And obviously that's going to happen when the person behind the production comes from WWE. And it's actually a really difficult thing too, that I don't think a lot of people will want to listen to this part, but like, it's not like there's that many people in the wrestling industry that know how to produce wrestling, right? Like WWE brought in Lee Fitting from ESPN, but he didn't have a background within professional wrestling. So obviously they have a whole team assembled of what they want. But you definitely see more of like a sports-like approach with the WWE production today. With AEW, I think what they had originally, and if I remember correctly, it was Kevin Sullivan Productions who did TNA's production before. But when they had that working, yes, like I said earlier, there was definitely some issues from time to time, but the production of it, the lighting, the crowd, the set, everything, that was AEW. They crafted their own identity. When Mike Mansuri came into the company, I feel like they lost their identity a little bit. And I don't think they can ever restore the feeling until they go back to that type of thing that they had initially. And the sad reality is they will never go back to that. I don't think they'll ever go back to that, which means they have to craft a new identity. And I think that's going to be very difficult with somebody whose background comes from WWE. I think to craft a new identity from a production standpoint, it's going to take an overhaul of things. Now, I don't have a problem with the AEW set. I don't have a problem with all the colors and the logos and stuff. Like, I don't think it looks bad, but I don't think that was AEW's vision. I don't think that was what AEW was made of. I would love to see them go for a more simplistic and grunge look between the lighting and the logo and the set and everything like that. I feel like that would make AEW different. But nobody seems to be talking about that. And I think if you go back and watch the old AEW programming, you knew it was special because it was different. And today, when you see LED boards and all this stuff, it just reminds you a little too much of WWE. And it just reminds you that AEW got away from their original identity. So let me know what you guys think down below.